Hello everyone, this is Dalster and welcome to another Dark Side of the Ring episode review, and in today's episode focuses on the Fabulous Moolah and her controversial past. I haven't seen this episode since it first aired, and it was actually the episode that made me get into the Dark Side of the Ring series. Around the time WWE were announcing a women's battle royal for WrestleMania in 2018, as they originally called it the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal. Unfortunately, there were allegations coming out, and I looked into it, and boy, was it dark. The WWE eventually changed it to the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. The allegations were pretty nasty, as women who trained at Fabulous Moolah's school were pimped or drugged for money. There was this really sad story of this woman named Sweet Georgia Brown, and it was really sad. Vice had her son and daughter interview for this episode, but I'll go over this episode and let you guys know what I remember and stuff. Trigger warning, as this episode contains R-word, SA, and inappropriate touching. Before I summarize what I learned, I'll start with some facts of Moolah's childhood, real quick. Fabulous Moolah's real name was Mary Lillian Ellison, and was born on July 22, 1923. By now, she could have been 100, about to turn 101 this year. She first lived in Kershaw County, South Carolina, but grew up in Tukido. Moolah was 9 when her mother died of cancer, so she was raised by her father and 4 brothers. Mary lived with her paternal grandmother for a while after her mom died. At 10, she was still going through the loss of her mom, so her dad took her to a wrestling show. From there, she saw Mildred Burke, who was considered one of the pioneers for women's wrestling. Mary became very influenced by Mildred, that she realized what women's wrestling had meant to her. From an old clip, Moolah said that she started wrestling at the age of 15. She graduated from Columbia High School and married a man named L. Walter Carroll. After getting married, Moolah gave birth to a daughter named Mary. Mary, the main topic of this video, left her daughter to a friend in order to start her wrestling career and then divorced her first husband. Mildred Burke's husband at the time, Billy Wolf, saw Mary and wanted to sleep with her when she was 17 or 18 years old at the time. Mary refused to do what Billy suggested. However, that didn't last long, as she ended up doing the same thing. She married a man named Johnny Long, but the marriage didn't last long either. After her second marriage, Mary married a man named Buddy Lee, who did bookings back then. They decided to do a training school for women who were entering the wrestling business. When it comes to wrestling, Moolah made her own wrestling costumes. In wrestling, Moolah was a huge heel who wrestled by hair pulling, catfighting, and scratching her opponents. In the old days, women's wrestling was banned in Madison Square Garden, but Moolah was the one to end the ban. She was all about the money as to why she was named Fabulous Moolah, but she charged her female wrestlers with booking fees. While she did her training school, Moolah did it close to her home in Columbia, South Carolina. One of the streets close to her home is called Moolah Drive. Diamond Lil, who was known as Katie, called Moolah Ma. Moolah had some big names in her training school, and one of them was Sweet Georgia Brown, whose real name was Susie McCoy. In a newspaper from Columbia Free Times, rumors surfaced from Susie's family alleging that Moolah pimped women in her school and fed them drugs. Mary, Moolah's daughter, does not believe that these allegations are true. Susie's daughter Barbara said that Moolah made her mom do things against her will. Barbara's husband Philip found the woman's banister after tearing down their farm, as seen in this episode. Moolah had trained women and booked them for 25 years, and Susie was one of the first African women that Moolah had trained. Susie's kids said in this episode that their mother endured a lot in Moolah's school, but she was a tough woman. From her kids' perspective, Susie had an incident with the KKK, since during Susie's time, the KKK were still lurking around hurting other people. Compared to today, they said that one of the members of the KKK in Mississippi threw Susie on the floor while she was taking the bus. Moolah would have Susie hide in the trunk of the car in order to avoid any violent outbursts or get turned away by promotions. In 1964, Sweet Georgia Brown was ranked number 4 in women's wrestling. She was an up-and-coming wrestler but had to leave her kids behind as she was on the road a lot. When her kids were at Susie's sister's care, her sister would call them half-breeds, as Susie would come back from wrestling school pregnant. Michael, one of Susie's kids, and Barbara talked about how awful it was getting bullied when they were kids for being half black and half white. Barbara said that she hated her mom's wrestling career until she was told about the whole story. In this episode, we see a picture of Susie's kids, and she had about 5 to 6 kids in total. Barbara remembers her mom coming out of the car, but was taken away soon after, while Susie's daughters grabbed Susie's leg, but were unsuccessful. Their mother was taken away by a man, and it wasn't the only memory Barbara had of her mother. She recalled her mother telling Barbara that she had to drink and pop pills while she was at Moolah's school. Susie was also forced to have sex with other men. Michael said that some of the promoters on the road paid some of the girls to have sex with them, as he recounted his mom telling him. When it came to these promoters, Barbara recalled her mother telling her that Susie was the favorite. Susie told Barbara that it was pimping and prostitution. Mary stated in this episode that Buddy Lee was not a nice person, as one day her mother Moolah caught Buddy sleeping with one of the women that Moolah was training. Moolah supposedly kicked Buddy out of the house as some of the girls followed him. Mary said that Susie was one of them that followed Buddy. Michael said that he decided to find out who his biological father was, so he went to Moolah's house because he thought that his mom could have gotten pregnant there. He then asked Moolah if she knew who his real father was, and Moolah pointed to a picture of Buddy Lee on her wall. Mary states that Buddy would sleep with Susie in his bed and that it could have possibly led to Susie being pregnant with Michael. Michael stated that he didn't want anything to do with Buddy as he just wanted to close that chapter of his life. Barbara and Michael's uncle burned Susie's wrestling gear and everyone was relieved. After everything that happened, Michael still considers his mom the first African-American female wrestler. Another person also had claims that Moolah was not a good woman, and that is WWE Hall of Famer Wendy Richter. When she was young, Wendy's first match that she watched was the Fabulous Moolah versus Vivian St. John. She told one of her friends that she could beat Moolah since Moolah kept the women's title for such a long time. When she went to Moolah's school, Wendy said that she didn't learn much other than just drop kicking. Wendy said that she never saw Moolah much at the school and that the ring mats were very hard. During the 1980s, women's wrestling was on the rise as Vince McMahon Jr. managed to get popular 80s singer Cyndi Lauper to be by Wendy's side. Wendy was Moolah's protege, but things were chaotic between them as Wendy said that Moolah was jealous of her because Wendy was young. The first WrestleMania was about to approach in the 80s as Wendy was facing Moolah for the women's title. The match was one of the most watched matches at the time, as Moolah finally lost her title after 28 years. In order to lose her title, Vince paid Moolah lots of money to let the title go to Wendy. Wendy said that she did not get paid a lot for her WrestleMania match, even though she had won the match. After WrestleMania, Wendy had a lot of matches with Moolah. In one match, Moolah put Wendy in the Boston Crab move, where the person doing the move has their opponent on their back, but not all the way, as it could break the opponent's back. Moolah, on the other hand, supposedly wanted to put out Wendy as she broke her spine. After that, she wrestled a woman known as the Spider Lady, and in another match with the Spider Lady, Wendy noticed that the Spider Lady looked a lot different. Wendy then realized that the Spider Lady was Moolah. A couple of minutes after the match had started, Wendy kicked out of a countout, but the referee went all the way to 3 and the match was over. The Spider Lady won and took off her mask, as it was indeed Moolah. Just like Bret Hart in the Montreal Screwjob, Wendy got screwed and was really upset about it. She tried to look for Vince, but he was nowhere to be found. Wendy then walked away as she wanted to be paid the same way as the men, but it was impossible in the 80s. She thinks that Moolah was holding back the women's division for 40 years. The episode aired in 2019, and at that time, Wendy said that she never saw that match between Moolah where Wendy got screwed. Another one of Moolah's trainees also had some problems while she was in Moolah's school. Her name is Victoria Otis, whose ring name was Princess Victoria, and she came from an abusive childhood, which made her interested in wrestling because of it. Her booker recommended Victoria to go to Moolah's training school. However, one of her friends told Victoria to not go there and just get a job instead. Victoria eventually went, and once she got to Moolah's property, she saw tall gates in the front. If it was night and one of the trainees was outside Moolah's gate, they would sleep outside until they opened the gates in the morning. Victoria said that Moolah would get $1,200 a month in the 80s and would also take 25% off on other fees. In an old clip, Moolah said that it was worth it. In 1984, Victoria broke her neck as her opponent tumbled on Victoria's painful neck. Victoria said that Moolah made her take a bump even if Victoria's neck was broken. Moolah then asked Victoria to go see a guy, and Victoria said that she would see the guy but to have separate motel rooms. Once Victoria was at the hotel, the guy tried to grab Victoria's hand but she moved it away and threatened the guy. Victoria said that Moolah was very upset that she didn't sleep with him. Moolah then took Victoria's outfits and dumped Victoria on the road. Victoria never wrestled again, and while she was being interviewed for this episode, she cried a little bit. She said that Moolah told the women trainees that Victoria left because Moolah caught her doing cocaine, which was false. Victoria said that once you get into the wrestling ring, you get addicted. She thinks that Moolah let her ego get in her way. After everything, Victoria thinks that Moolah's history should not be taken away, even though Moolah treated Victoria badly. At the end of this episode, Victoria angrily tells the camera that whoever started the rumor of Moolah being a pimp, they're calling Victoria a prostitute and that they should shut up since it hurts Victoria's feelings. One of Moolah's trainees named Selena had a different experience as she was heavily influenced by Moolah and wanted to wrestle her. Selena says that fans can't tell the difference between the character and Moolah. Moolah then got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 1995. During the 90s and 2000s, women's wrestling faded as it was all about the bikinis. Although she was in her late 70s at the time, Moolah still appeared and wrestled sometimes during those years. Eventually she stopped and passed away in 2007 at the age of 84. Mary said that Moolah's funeral was full and to this day still misses and loves her mom. In 2018, WWE were supposed to do the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania to honor her, but then the rumors and allegations started coming out about Moolah's dark past. WWE soon took the name away 2 to 3 days later to avoid controversy. Nigel, a fan of Moolah who does a campaign called Fight for Moolah, wanted to put out the truth of Moolah and honor her. He said that he spoke to 20 women and they all said in his words that there was no truth to the rumors. Leilani Kai, Judy Martin, and Peggy Lee have denied that Moolah did anything to them or pimped them out. In 2019, Mary still had Moolah's wrestling license. Interviewers for this episode are Jim Cornette, Mary Austin, Moolah's daughter, Selena Majors, Bambi, Nigel Sherrod, creator of the Fight for Moolah campaign and host, Michael McCoy, pastor and son of Susie McCoy, Barbara Harsey, daughter of Susie McCoy, Kenny McCoy, son of Susie McCoy, Wendy Richter, and Victoria Otis, Princess Victoria. I gave this episode an 8 out of 10 since it was a very fast-paced episode but still had some missing information. It was good but didn't really get much into Moolah's youth, nor did they manage to get more former trainees who had a good or bad experience. My thoughts on these allegations is that I think Moolah did do all of these dark things, as I agree with Wendy that Moolah held the women's division back for so long. Don't believe me? Then why did Moolah hold the women's title for over 10 years? A lot longer than Roman Reigns' title reign. I don't think Moolah was a nice person, as I could tell from the look on her face that she always looked too old for her age and looked really upset most of the time. I remember seeing a clip on YouTube on Moolah and it was creepy as it was too close to her face. Even the commentators, Jerry Lawler and I think Jim Ross, were freaked out about it. I also heard that Moolah trapped her daughter Mary in the closet for years. Even after abandoning her, Mary still loved her mom, which is understandable as it was her mom. I remember reading the Sweet Georgia Brown story and it was so depressing and heartbreaking. I think her kids are telling the truth since Susie's son is a pastor and they do look mixed. I think Moolah was considered an icon back then because she was the only woman who supposedly did it all. I see it a lot currently with Trish Stratus as she seems like the poster girl for the women's division. The reason why is because she is blonde, but today it's a little more diverse than it was back then. Don't get me wrong, I like Trish, she's still great, but there is Lita, Victoria, Jazz, and so many other women during her time. To me, the Wendy and Moolah story kind of reminds me of the rumored rivalry between Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo, as I heard supposedly that Taylor wants to continue being the popular singer even though she is getting older and Olivia's a new up and coming artist. I feel so bad for Sweet Georgia Brown and her kids, especially Victoria, as she loved to wrestle and used it as an escape from her bad childhood. I just hope something like this does not happen to anyone else or we see another Moolah ruining the women's division, as it has come a long way since then. As of today, I heard Mary Moolah's daughter passed away in 2022 or in 2023. Wendy is still alive and was called out by Tony Storm in a funny promo I saw on the internet recently. But that's pretty much it for this video, as it's probably a long video for you guys. I thought it was interesting but so sad and dark. And that's pretty much it, the rest of Season 1 for Dark Side the Ring, as I will move on to Season 2. I do hope nothing of what Moolah did happens to anyone else in the women's division. I love women's wrestling, and lots of women deserve their chance to shine, not just one person. Or one person getting all the glory, if you know what I mean. Anyway, this is Dalster, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Comment, like, subscribe, take care of your mental health, and everyone around you, and I'll do the same too. Bye guys.